Hey guys, so for the next project we're going to look at the fuel tank on the 66 Porsche 912. I have had the carburetors off repeatedly and apart, and I keep getting trash in the jets, and it's little minute stuff that the filters aren't picking up. I have 2 filters on here and that's not enough. I had this tank coated in probably 95 when I got this car all put back together, and I have a feeling that coating's coming off in minute little particles. So I got a new coating kit, but first we'll take a look around, look inside it, and drain the fuel out and see what it looks like. Only access from the top is the fuel tank sending unit right here under the trunk carpet. That plug just slides off there. Sending unit, there's like a float inside this tube. And it actually appears to work. I don't know what we're going to be able to see down in there. I could put a match down in there, light it up a little bit. Probably not a good idea. You see anything in here? It looks like rust, but as I recall, that coating was red. Let's try to make a giant Q-tip and stick down there and see if we can poke any stuff off there. Yeah, there's some chunks on there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and drain it into a clean container and we'll see what comes out. So under the car I've removed the protection plate that covers all this. This is a 6mm Allen in this drain. I've already cracked it loose. And I have enlisted my bungee cord container to try to catch this. I also have another container and safety glasses, because usually this is going to make a huge mess, and I foresee gas running down my arm before this is over with. Let's go. And I was right. I don't think that there's very much in here. Like a gallon maybe, but I've been known to be wrong. Now let's see if I can set this down without spilling it. Get my secondary container up here. Now if there's more than this one, I'm kind of screwed. I'm getting close to screwed territory here. Yeah, that's pretty much all over the place. Let's put the plug back in. I know it'll fit in here. Now that I have all these open containers of gasoline sitting around, I'm going to pour it through this strainer just to contain it, and then see what comes out of the strainer and see how much is in there, because based on what my fuel gauge says, it said the tank was almost empty. I have a feeling we got 3-4 gallons in here maybe. Actually, it was doing pretty well till I poured it over the side right there. There's a little bit of junk in there. Not quite what I was expecting, but based on the color of that fuel, it's probably good to get it out of there anyway. I think that's color is coming from the coating that's in the tank. So let me see how much we got here. Yep, that's about 4 gallons. So let me clean up the hazmat situation here. Before I would get completely overcome by fumes, I figured I'd check out the sending unit. Cleaned it off. You probably can't see that. Maybe. There's a ground symbol right there, a G and a W, and I think this post doesn't do anything. I think it just indexes the plug. So to see if our sending unit's messed up or the gauge is messed up or what's going on. I'm assuming the G stands for gauge. So we'll go on the ground, set on ohms. So there we are on the G in the ground. We have 70 ohms roughly. We flip this thing over and the float flops to the other end. We have 5 ohms. Since you can't see it, it's hard to figure in the middle, but it appears as though you got 70 ohms when it's empty and about 5 ohms when it's full. So this appears to be working right, which is probably typical. It'd be the more expensive part, the gauge. But anyway, before I get overcome by fumes, so I'll have to check the gauge out once we get this all back together. Actually, we can check the gauge out right now. Let's do that. Just hook the plug. We'll get back up. Yeah. That other pin just locates it. So I should turn the key on and that should read a full tank. It does read full tank. That is odd. So maybe it does work and it's just not accurate. The first step of removing the tank will be to get this peach of a flat spare tire out of here. And there's clamp bolts that clamp it down, one there. Assuming there's one on the other side. Anyway, that shouldn't be too difficult. And then we'll go under the car and get there's one in the front, get the fuel line to the tank unhooked. So there are 3 locations around here that have these clamps that hold the fuel tank down. I have removed the vent hose, gone under the car, removed the fuel feed line, and got the clamp off this prehistoric piece of rubber up here. This thing should pull out of here. Whatever this fitting is, that's a 10 millimeter. Just a plug. So 27 is too big. Let me see what else I have that might fit that. Try a 27 socket. Give it a little more grip, more sides. And there's our fuel screen. It goes to the carburetors, and that thing actually is pretty fine, looks pretty clean. So we'll be able to reuse that. So the next step is, I'll read the directions on the kit, but I think I want to get that other coating out of there, so I'm going to try soaking it in the solvent and see what that does. So I have another gallon of lacquer thinner in there, plus some MEK I had laying around to try to eat this old coating out. It occurred to me, I'm going to need to flip this over. So I found a block off, old brake pin, a piece of hose. I'll block that vent off, but I need to make something to block the sending unit hole off, and it also will help when I put the sealer in it. There's the gasket from the sending unit that came out. So I can't really use that thing. So I'm going to have to make a gasket. So what I'm going to try, use a piece of paper and a piece of charcoal. That should give me a hole pattern. I just need to make a gasket for that, and then I'll cut a piece of metal and we'll blank that off. Took a piece of cardboard out of a beverage container. I went ahead and laid this back on the tank and poked the holes to make sure I was in the right spot. This is not super critical. I can go a little bigger on the holes. This is not going to be my gasket for the sending unit. I'll buy a new one, but this will be a gasket to work on the tank. I had this hole punch, but it appears all the punches fell out of it. That kind of sucks. Hopefully this will be big enough. We'll just do this method. So this gasket, this hole pattern is not symmetric, so it only goes on one way, and I need to figure that out right now. I think it looks about right. I ran some PB Blaster down these holes, make sure the threads are clean. Make sure we're lined up right. That looks right. These holes they're blind, so they won't leak through, but the thickness of the sending unit is thicker than this plate, so they'll bottom out. So I'm going to pile some washers under them to take up that difference. So I went to Lowe's, got a rubber cap for 1.5-inch pipe. It was really close to the right size. It fits like a glove. Pretty much like it's made for it. All right, now we'll flip her over and see how it does, see if that seals. So this tank has sat here for about 2 weeks, full of lacquer thinner, pretty much, and we are getting ready to dump it out and see what it looks like. It's been in about every different position, and I've shaken it and turned it upside down and done all that. So now it's time for the big reveal. So that would be the old coating, and that's about half of it, so I'll get that transferred out and we'll dump the rest out. So I will let the rest of that evaporate, then we will get on to the next stage of the coating process. Okay, so it's the next day and this tank is aired out, and so is the garage. It does not smell like toxic chemical fumes in here right now. So I have a tank sealer kit from KBS Coatings, which is apparently the gold standard tank sealer. First step is to clean the tank. So we have drained all that and we use this KBS clean solution, 1-to-1 ratio in here. This is this whole thing in 1 part hot water, and we will let soak and roll around and get the rust out of it. First thing, I'm going to put the drain plug back in. In the beginning of the video, that was weeping a little bit. I did not find a sealing ring on that when I took it off, so I found one in my junk drawer and put one on. So that should be sealed. We'll put this whole container in there. Go fill this with hot water and dump another one in there. Before we cover this up, we're going to put in a piece of chain. Hope I can get that back out later. Oh, there we go. Those line up. See if we can get these to line up, maybe like that. Okay, we're sealed up again. Now, we shake around and let that piece of chain rattle around in there and rip off any rust. So we will work this periodically back and forth to try to loosen up everything in there and clean that thing out. All right, let's hurry before the big leaf blower starts back up again. This thing's been soaking about 24 hours and I've shaken and swished it about every different direction. So now we're going to dump this cleaning stuff out of there and we will rinse it. It's getting dark too, so we'll just have to deal with a leaf blower machine. Just pull the drain plug out. Said to rinse till it runs clear. Let's see what we get. Looks pretty not clear to me. Looks pretty dirty. Looks like about our best position to let that stuff run out of there. I'll pull the center unit cover out and you get that piece of chain out of there anyway. A lot of bubbles in there. Let me see if I can find this chain, get that thing snatched out of there. I'm right in the middle, so I'm picking up all of it. I need to find an end. Getting closer. Come on, baby. Chain should be pretty clean. Here goes. So for right now, prop it up here in front of the heater. Let's see what we look like in there. I don't know if you can see any of that. I don't know if I can see any of that. So that's just a cleaning step. There's another step where we etch the metal, which I think will be all right. So we'll let this thing dry and then we'll move on to the etch and sealing step.